Say hello now to Gerald Celente, who is standing by. Nice to have you with us today, Gerald.
Well, thank you. Bravo. That was wonderful. You really summed it up. That was that was more than just a short talk. That was a short book, and you really brought it all together coherently, vividly, and realistically. And beginning what you said, it's devolving into lawlessness is one of the phrases you used at the beginning of what you said, and that's exactly what's happened in this country. It has devolved into lawlessness. And when you're talking about how the big criminals get no crime time, as we say the word justice is being misspelled, it's Justus, just us. There's no justice for them. And so I applaud you for what you just
Thank you.
Wrote and read. It's excellent.
Gerald, I'm going to share just the topic, 2 topics at a time. And for the remainder of the program, please give us your projections forward, all right, for the next year or 2. But let's try to see what might come from the next year. We're going to begin with war. What do you see coming as far as conflict? And also, do you see the bond market being the big bubble that no one's paying attention to? And will it be recognized and will it explode? Those are the 2 first issues to take on today.
Well, the first one on war. The world is already at war. The first great war of the 21st century has begun. They're just not adding it up. Look what you mentioned what's going on in Europe. There's class warfare in Greece, in Spain, in Portugal, in Ireland, in Italy, in Slovenia, in other places throughout the world. Far too few have much too much, and way too many have much too little. When millions of people take to the streets as frequently as they do, can't people see this is, off with their heads 2.0? And then you go over and look what's going on in Yemen. Well, there's a civil war going on. And then in Bahrain, same thing, but don't talk about Bahrain because the U.S. Fifth Fleet happens to be stationed there. So the emir over there can't do any wrong. And then you go, of course, there's the civil war in Libya, thanks to that wonderful humanitarian mission launched by our Nobel Peace Prize winning president. And then, of course, the civil war in Syria, also instigated by the same people that started the Libyan war for the same reasons. And then you look what's going on in Israel. Israel this week, within I think it was about a week and a half, they announced the building of 5,200 more. They call them settlements, as though this is the prairie and there's nobody out there. These are housing developments, and it's instigating the situation there and inflaming it even more. And then you look at what's going on in Egypt. The Muslim Brotherhood has taken over, the same thing in Tunisia. And there are civil wars going on in those countries as well, yet they're not calling them that. And by the way, with the prostitutes, the mainstream media never mention, is that both in Tunisia and Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood had absolutely nothing to do with the revolutions that began. And they weren't an Arab Spring. It wasn't a pro-democracy movement. It's about a lot of people in poverty that are being pushed into deeper poverty and are angry about the people at the top of the pyramid raping off all the money. And then you look about what's going on when you put it together, whether there's civil wars, regional wars, class warfare, it's war, and it's going to spread. And when you look at, for example, the current events forming future trends, and you read today, for example, and yesterday, about the so-called suicide bombers that are killing more people in Afghanistan. Oh, I forgot to mention the drone strikes going into Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Yemen, and now into the Sudan. When you look at what's going on, how can people not realize that these problems are going to come home to roost? We wrote about this in detail. It's called New Millennium Warfare. In 2000, Gary, I was asked to go to VMI, Virginia Military Institute. That's the same place where Mitt Romney announced his geopolitical platform, and was asked to discuss what new millennium warfare would look like. And on the panel afterwards were such people as General Anthony Zinni and others. And I gave the format of what it would look like in the new millennium with new millennium warfare. How they say that generals keep fighting the last war. They're still fighting the last war with F-35s that have a price tag of over $1 trillion. Oh, by the way, I forgot. The United States announced last week in an AP report that we're going to start sending troops into 35 countries across Africa. Isn't that wonderful? And, of course, you know why we're sending them there. Oh, to promote freedom and democracy? No, not according to Peter Pham, the State Department advisor, who's been on the advisory board from AFRICOM, AFRICOM. Actually, it should be an N at the end. It's a con. And he spelled it out clearly. He said, we're going there, quote, protecting access to hydrocarbons and other strategic resources which Africa has in abundance, a task which includes ensuring against the vulnerability of those natural riches and ensuring that no other interested third parties such as China, India, Japan, or Russia obtain monopolies or preferential treatment. So there you have it.
Okay.
The world war has begun. It's spreading.
Let's go
on
now.
The bond market.
Bond market.
Yeah, the interest rates are going to have to go up at some point. Look what happened in the last few weeks. First, about 8 months ago, we heard from the Brazilian financial minister, Manteiga, said, quote, trade wars have begun by countries such as the United States and the European nations lowering their interest rates to record lows so that they devalue their currency to help exporters export more product. A month ago, the former chairman of the former head of the Bank of England, Mervyn King in New York, said, quote, currency wars have begun. And now Japan just elected a new prime minister, Abe. What has Abe done? He has demanded that the Bank of Japan lower interest rates. Why? Because, and to use his words, a currency war has begun. At some point, interest rates are going to have to go up. When will that happen? Will it happen next year? Maybe not, but possibly. And when they do, the bond market bubble is going to explode as interest rates go higher. You cannot keep this Ponzi scheme alive by just keeping interest rates low, devaluing the dollars and other currencies around the world so their exporters could keep exporting their crap to other countries. Look at the current events that, again, forming future trends. You go back to every report that came out prior to Christmas holiday, and each report said that retail sales were going to increase over 2.5%. The initial data shows it went up 0.7%. So we're not seeing any increase at all. And that is in spite of pumping trillions and trillions of dollars throughout the world, the United States with their QE 3s and 4s and whatever else you want to call them. China's dumping in tons of yuan into their system to keep their failing markets afloat. The Europeans are doing it also with their ongoing monetary transactions. I love the language, OMTs. And they said that they would continue to buy up worthless bonds as long as they could continue to do it, which is forever, until it stops, because nothing is indefinite. So what you have is the entire world is propping up their economies by buying worthless bonds and printing worthless money. When will it end? I believe it's going to end not because of a financial crisis. Our best estimate is that it's going to end when we go to war. And war is around the corner as we see it, because then they will be able to use that excuse to officially devalue the currencies, blame it on terrorists and other people that hate our, quote, freedom and liberty, and put the people deeper into tyranny.
Next issue, what do you see in as far as our further encroachment upon the Bill of Rights, our constitutional liberties, surveillance of Americans, and virtually not a word out of the corporate Democrats, even on MSNBC and on current TV. They're all aligned now. They're not real liberals. They're corporate Democrats. Big difference. Big difference. And tell us what you see as far as continuing the militarization of our police and the overreach of all of our national security apparatus agencies.
As I said, the worse it becomes economically, the more liberties and rights they take away from us. I have a line. I say that conservatives believe and liberals lie. And let me explain. People who call themselves conservative believe stupid things like, we got to kill all them Muslims over there so they don't come over here. I mean, they actually believe that stuff. They believe that invading other countries is proper foreign policy so that we're safe at home. Liberals, on the other hand, lie. I'm so disgusted with Obama apologists. I refuse, when I go to parties anymore, when people start talking to me about trends and asking me questions, I can't stand it anymore. I lay down the line of Obama atrocities, from the raping of the Constitution last year, just about this time, New Year's Eve, with his signing of the National Defense Authorization Act, which allows the military to come and take anybody they want, Obama to kill anybody they want without any jury, without any charges, without any trial, without any writs of habeas corpus, to take us away, do whatever they want to with us, kill us, and nothing in the way of the Constitution to stop them. And then they'll say to me, and then I'll talk about the warrantless wiretapping and how Obama has out-Bush with the Patriot Act, laying out one fact after another. Again, killing American civilians because El Presidente of Los Estados Unidos, the big banana republic that we now have, says so. And they'll say, oh, why do you think he's doing that? What do you mean, why? Why did this kid go nuts up in Connecticut? The why's not important, the is. And then they'll say, well, he's probably getting pressure. Is this guy a man or a mouse? What do you mean he's getting pressure? And they keep making excuses. And that's what's holding back this nation. Not the conservative element, because in fact they're a very small segment of the society. When you look at their numbers, in true evangelical terms, they're a small minority. It's the people that are intellectually equipped to know the truth, but keep lying to themselves because they don't have the courage to believe that the belief system that they believe in is a fraud. And their commander-in-chief is the BSer-in-chief. That's what's holding it back. Are we going to lose more rights? What rights? The more the economy goes down, the more fascism that comes to America.
Okay. Next issue, the fracking future.
We have in this upcoming TrendsJournal that'll be out in about 10 days, a 10,000-word report, white paper on fracking, the pros and the cons. I have my own feelings, particularly living in upstate New York and not far from fracking territory. Oh, and by the way, you Obama apologists out there, go back to the debates between the president and Mitt Romney. They were outdoing each other into who would give away more public land to fracking, of which Obama's already opened up 700 million acres. That's right, of public land. Where's it going to go? It's going to continue, unfortunately. unless the people stop it. And again, we have all the pros and cons. Anybody could debate the facts. All the facts are there. As I see it, it's fracking is only going to cause more destruction, whether it's the earthquakes from pumping fracking fluids back into the ground or poisoning the water. However, as you call them, the corporate Democrats in power, fracking is in the future unless the people stop it.
Next up, and this is one that almost never is discussed, there is a major movement back to the land. People leaving California and New York and New Jersey, three of the most, if not the three most, overtaxed and overregulated and highly polluted environments and non-sustainable in many respects. They're going back to more sustainable environments. What do you see the sustainability movement doing and people leaving over-congested and not always hospitable urban environments?
It's going to be a country of the no's and the know-nothings. The no's are going to do everything they can to live a life that has dignity, respect, courage, integrity, and passion, and they're not going to find it in corrupt inner cities or suburbs. And they're going to be the back to the land movement is going to be huge, particularly as clean, safe food becomes a major, major issue. And also, as we know, unfortunately, what happened in California with the genetically modified foods being stricken down because of the corporate pressure and the people that believe that is beyond me that they could have voted for it. But also, as we've just seen again, the Obama administration is now allowing genetically modified salmon to also go into the marketplace. So you're going to have a sustainability movement that's also going to have another aspect to it, Gary. We're going to see a growth in the secessionist movements. And it's happening around the world. And it's not a bunch of, right-wing nuts that are pushing this. And everybody has a reason why, and there are, for instance, going on in Spain, in Catalonia, they want to pull away from Spain because they're doing better financially, although they're deep in debt. And they want to stay into the European Union, but yet they want their own independence. The same in Scotland, the same is going on in Italy. You're going to see these movements spreading up around the world, and particularly in the United States. People forgot that after the election, over 1 million people signed petitions for secessionism. And up in Vermont, far from a white right-wing movement, it was founded by the Second Vermont Republic by Thomas Naylor, who unfortunately, a very dear friend of mine and one of the kindest, real gentlemen I know, passed on recently. He was a professor emeritus at Duke University and a man that truly peace on earth, goodwill to men would be his motto.
Gerald,
he was ahead of that movement.
I want that is a show to itself because a lot of people won't understand what you're referring to. I want to keep that separate for a moment, but we are coming up to the end of our regular scheduled program for most of our land-based stations. But I have a lot more questions, including the Millennials in motion, the born around 1980 through 2000, 77 million strong. They're slated to become the first American generation to be financially worse off than their parents are. I need to ask about that and gold and some other things. If people would like to continue listening to this conversation, you can by calling a phone number, 832-280-0066, 832-280-0066, and or go to progressiveradionetwork.com. Because at 55 minutes we have to say goodbye. So we're saying goodbye to all those stations, but we're continuing on to finish this discussion. Take a moment to explain in lay language exactly what the secessionist movement is, how it has been denigrated by mainly the Democrats and many in the liberals, but what it really represents today.
It means the freedom that we no longer have. And this country's, I was one of the first people when the too big to fail big lie became mainstream that this is the merger of state and corporate powers. It's called fascism. And I get these people who say, well, that's not exactly what Mussolini said. No, they're quoting it wrong. That's precisely what Mussolini said. And that's what's happened in this country. This is no different than we should call it the USSA now that it's picked up after the demise of the USSR. Just as the Kremlin couldn't rule that giant country, neither can the Washington Kremlin rule this country. How could we have a gang of 535 senators and congressmen in total telling 312 million people what to do and how to do it? The country is too big to govern. It doesn't work. It's failed at every end. You began this by talking about the fraud of the fiscal cliff. Who could get away with this crap? This has been going on since the summer of 2011. And the incompetence and the inepts have been doing nothing to solve the problems, only making them worse. I will ask you, and I will ask every listener out there, you point to one thing, one, that Washington has done successfully. Oh, the wars, the fake wars that they started in Iraq and Afghanistan, the longest war in history, Afghanistan, in American history. Oh, the wonderful humanitarian mission in Libya. That was a great war, too. Oh, health care. God, what a great job they've done. Education. We spend more on education and more on health than any of the OECD nations, and we don't even win, place, or show in those categories in being near the top. Great job. How about the war on drugs? What a beauty that was. Oh, a couple of $1 trillion spent, and our jails are filled by the correctional industrial complex by dragging people off the street and filling them up for victimless crimes. There's not one thing that Washington has done that they could put their imprimatur on and say, hey, great job. So, what is the secessionist movement about? If you want to live in a state where you have pro-choice, go to that state. If you don't like it, move to a state where you don't have it. If you want to go to a state like Colorado, where they're now going to have it be legal to smoke a joint, go to that state. If you want to stay in the state of perpetual denial of another state, go to that state. Let the people decide their future. That's what secessionism is about. It's breaking up the corrupt union. And by the way, I'm sick of these politicians quoting the Founding Fathers because they only quote what they want. If they want to quote the Founding Fathers, how about this? You should rebel when your nation becomes corrupt, to paraphrase what Jefferson and the others said. So it's a time to rebel. And so the secessionist movement isn't about a bunch of right-wing nuts. It's about a bunch of people who are disgusted with the Washington gang running the show and screwing the people.
How do you reconcile that federal law always usurps state law and local law is usurped by state law? That's one of the problems with fracking. A company comes in, a local community organizes, grassroots support gets out the people. The people say, we're not going to allow you to frack in this area. The company then that is going to frack sues the county and brings in the heavyweight lawyers. The county then has to acquiesce and put it back that they can, and if they drop the lawsuits. And this is being done everywhere in the United States. So at what point do the states regain enough sovereignty to conduct business between other states, but also have the power that if they pass a law, the federal government says, we can pass all the non-smoking, pro-smoking marijuana in your home, privacy if you want, but the federal law is what counts. So if we come knocking on your door, the federal government wins, not the state. How do you deal with that?
Well, that's it. With secessionism, the federal government wouldn't be ruling the state. And you could say the word states' rights, and it has a dirty ring to it because people will associate it with segregation and other issues. But it's more than that. And, there's nothing perfect in this world. But the fact is that federal law is just protecting the federal criminals, and it's a federal takeover. And that's why, again, countries like the former Soviet Union broke up. Look, this is only a blip in history that we're going through. And so there's no reason why this country should be run by Washington anymore. Matter of fact, there's all the reason why it shouldn't be. So the state laws will supersede federal laws.
We have time for one last question, then I'm going to have to invite you back because I've got a lot of other ones. You're doing such a great job explaining issues. I want you to talk about the Millennials in motion, because there's 77 million young people in the United States who are graduating from college, have worked hard, gotten their degrees. They have mountains of debt, compounding interest kicks in, and they're either unemployed or underemployed, living with their parents. What do you see the next year being for them?
Well, as we call them, Generation F. This generation is the only generation in modern American history that believes that their future will be bleaker than the past, and they should, because they don't have a shot at it. 50% of them that have jobs that require a high school education. This is going to be the group, by the way, that could really lead a positive change in America. And this is the one we're putting our money on, because they are well educated. They do understand what's going on. And if they could become free in their minds and put their energies in the right direction, this could be, the millennial generation could be the saving generation of this country. Because they're smart enough to know that they have no future here. And guess what? They're not alone. You look at the unemployment rates among people between the ages of 18 to 28 around the world, and you were talking about Europe before, you're looking at over 50% in Spain, 50% in Greece. It's about 20% in Italy, 25% in Portugal, and in the United States officially around 14%. So this group has a lot of great potential to really push an awakening, a new direction in this country, because they're not going to have a shot at it. They're not going to be able to go into the workforce and use the skills that they've gotten from college, and they're not going to get out of that mountain of debt. And by the way, that's also going to put downward pressure on the real estate market, because they're not going to be able to buy homes. They're going to spend most of their lives as indentured servants paying off debt unless the course is changed.
Gerald, we have to have a continuation. I haven't gotten through all the issues. I'm inviting you back in the next few days. Whenever you have a moment, please let us know. We want to continue, all right?
Oh, I'd love to. Thanks so much, Gary.
Gerald Celente, he is here to share his insights into the new year, and he is the publisher of the TrendsJournal, the TrendsJournal.com. I'm Gary Null. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate your support. Let's now say hello to our next host here on the Progressive Radio Network, Utrice Lead. Hi, Utrice.
Hello, Gary. Today we'll be spending some time with Yanis Varoufakis, who is a Greek economist, and he says that there is an illusion about the debt crisis. It really isn't about debt. It is, in fact, quite the opposite. Too much money with no place to go.
Well, I just dealt with that, except I found a place for it to go. Wall Street, hedge funds, corporate, and I'm sure that half the hedge fund wives are sticking it up their ass and saving it for their divorce so they can marry their plastic surgeon after 73 different implants. Have a good show, Trace.
God.